Look at the sheer volume of information on this screen. Overlapping video frames, comment bubbles, and scrolling lyrics. Our students process this dense sensory input every day. For English educators, this raises a slightly uncomfortable question. Does highly produced popular culture have a legitimate place in a formal academic curriculum? The answer is yes, provided the pedagogical reasoning is clearly defined. Inclusion should be based on educational value, rather than student enjoyment, or the fact that a topic happens to be a current trend. Simply inserting pop culture into a lesson plan provides no guarantee of higher academic quality. This material is a powerful resource, only when educators treat it with the same analytical seriousness they require of a traditional text. Exploring the practical application of that seriousness is the central focus of this breakdown. The educational value of any pop culture artifact is rooted in the methodology of the teacher, not in the entertainment value of the media itself. The traditional English classroom operates on a specific baseline assumption, the primacy of the printed word, primarily novels, poems, and essays. These traditional print mediums remain essential to developing deep literacy. However, modern literacy extends outward, demanding comprehension far beyond ink on a page. We can see this reality by looking at how modern information fractures outward into a dynamic interface. A student is rarely reading just one thing. They are simultaneously interpreting a video player window, scrolling text boxes, and an audio waveform. They are navigating dense, overlapping visual, performative, and editorial elements. Students already read the world through these simultaneous modes every time they open a screen. The challenge for educators is no longer acknowledging that these complex literacies exist. The challenge is committing to teaching students how to critically navigate them. We can analyze K-pop as a vertical stack of data, an audio waveform, translated text, visual composition, and editing cuts. Because this data pulses simultaneously between layers, it acts as a dense academic text. To begin, we isolate the text layer. For an English teacher, the most logical starting point is the written word, the lyrics. Pedagogically, a song's lyrics function exactly like traditional poetry. This whiteboard markup applies standard ELA competencies to lyrics. We identify imagery, circle repeating words, and highlight descriptive phrases to determine the overarching tone. Students can execute precise analytical tasks, interrogating specific word choices or explaining how a repeating chorus anchors a central theme. There is a significant logistical advantage here. Because songs are brief, an educator can guide a class through multiple repeated close readings in a single session without ever overwhelming the student's cognitive load. Lyric analysis establishes a strong academic baseline. The true rigor begins when we introduce the variables that surround those words. In this medium, the visual layer carries equal narrative weight to the text. This accompanying imagery has the power to drastically alter a viewer's interpretation. Students must learn to read visual variables with the same scrutiny they apply to text, analyzing color palettes, noticing camera angles, evaluating set design, and interpreting microexpressions. Look at this comparative matrix. Does a bright, high-energy aesthetic on the left or dark, tight framing on the right truly support the central text? This forces the student to ask, do the visuals deepen the core message, or are they actively challenging the text? Formulating answers to these questions requires students to trigger exact ELA competencies. They are actively making interpretations based on observation. They are identifying deliberate authorial choices in the media they consume. And they are connecting form to meaning while providing concrete evidence to support their conclusions. Forcing students to navigate the intersection of visual and textual analysis constitutes rigorous academic learning. The third layer of complexity introduces translation and cross-cultural language mechanics. A global target audience primarily engages with these texts through localized corporate subtitles or fan-generated translations. Rather than treating this language barrier as a deficit, educators can use it to study how meaning shifts between languages. We branch down from a single source text to compare an official corporate subtitle against a localized fan translation. By categorizing the differing adjectives as either literal interpretations or cultural connotations, students analyze why one phrase feels more poetic or more direct. This opens a dialogue about what specific information is lost during translation and what extra meaning is inadvertently added. Examining these discrepancies builds acute language awareness regarding connotation and the inherent bias present in any translation. Encountering multilingual texts forces students to realize that language, and the meaning it conveys, is never truly neutral. Once the analytical input phase is complete, we transition to the output phase, speaking and writing tasks. Students can structure formal debates around the thematic tension of a song, or dissect the underlying global marketing strategy of a performance. Writing tasks also demand deep critical evaluation, such as arguing whether a specific video relies on clear narrative storytelling or abstract symbolic meaning. This synthesis is perfectly suited for producing structured PL paragraphs. Students draw threads from lyrics, visuals, and translation, funneling them into clear points, evidence, explanation, and links to analyze theme and tone. Producing this output proves that this methodology is the literal application of academic language. There is a valid professional hesitation here, the fear that if students inherently enjoy the material, the academic seriousness is somehow diminished. Enjoyment and rigor can coexist. Highly engaging texts demand serious thought, and that combination often makes complex learning more memorable. However, implementing this methodology carries inherent risks if poorly executed. The primary risk is alienating students who are not existing fans, which accidentally creates an exclusive insider dynamic in the classroom. Look at this curriculum map to see the core rule of implementation. The central objective is multimodal analysis. A graphic novel, a music video, and a short film are all equally valid options. Pop culture must be an option, not an assumption of prior knowledge. There is also a practical classroom constraint. Research indicates that playing lyrical music actively degrades reading comprehension if it is used as passive background noise. This media must never be background noise. It must remain the primary target of active, intentional annotation and discussion. Moving past the initial gimmick stage enables students to practice rigorous media literacy and develop deep cross-cultural understanding. Validating these multimodal texts proves to students that the analytical skills they learn in an English classroom are directly connected to their lived reality. Ignoring the complex media that actively shapes how students identify and communicate is a massive missed educational opportunity. The ultimate goal of English teaching is illustrated on this spectrum. We provide the structure necessary to shift students away from being passive consumers of media and turn them into active, critical thinkers. K-pop earns its place in the classroom through its structural density and its demand for serious, teachable analysis.